Hey guys, back again with another classic video against nebchess 2062. Let's check out this guy's other ratings. Yield, new account, the relatively high classical rating and no other games. That's generally a little bit of a worry for me, but that's okay. Playing the Grünfeld defense, main line of which goes not e3, goes c takes d5. But e3 is kind of a move, I guess. It's a little lame, but not terrible. I know against e3, some people go c6, and you just go into a Schlechter Slav. Try saying that 3 times fast. But I think I'm just going to castle. I want to go for a c5 plan. Just rip open the center. Hope everyone had a good Monday and Tuesday. It is about 8:30 my time. Jeez. So if c5, d takes c5, queen a5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, bishop takes c3, b takes c3, queen takes c3. I'm bagging this rook. There's also c5, d takes c5, queen a5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, queen takes d5, bishop c3, bishop d2. And after bishop takes d2, queen takes d2. Yeah, we'll go with that. That seems okay for me. Just got back from physical therapy. I have a latent lower back injury that I let go a little too long. Besides chess, I, for quite a while, was a very dedicated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. Highly recommended if you're into that sort of thing. Can take all kinds of different ways here. Thinking about d takes c4 now that he's moved the bishop. It's more common in these queen's pawn openings of all kinds for both sides to only take on c4 once their opponent has moved the bishop. If I took on c4 last move, black could take. But this would be a tempo up version for me since he's already had to put his bishop on e2. Am I worried about anything there? I don't think so. D takes c4, d takes c5, I can just go queen a5, and I'll pick this pawn back up. And if bishop takes c4, I'm thinking about just taking on d4, knight takes d4, and then queen c7. And my rook will come to d8 quickly, hopefully embarrass the lady here. So we're going to go with that. Not particularly ambitious play from white in the opening phase. And I think, yeah, I'll take here. I'm going to try and embarrass this bishop a little bit. Gain a tempo for my development. Interesting. Would not have figured white would take that way. I assumed he would take with the knight. Do I have to adjust my plan at all now? A lot of possible moves here. Knight c6. I could go knight d7 to b6, looking to fight for the d5 square a little bit more. Still think queen c7 is probably playable, but now that he's put the pawn on d4, I sort of feel like I want my queen to stay on the d file. I could even consider a6 and b5 perhaps, looking to put the bishop on b7. It's almost tempting to go knight f to d7. That's probably a little bit flashy, intending to put my knights on b6 and c6 in this case, and opening up the bishop. think I'll just probably go knight c6. If he plays d5, I can go knight a5 with tempo, and I don't much mind that position. I might want to go knight a5 anyway. This light squared bishop is a very well-placed piece at the moment. Yeah, this just, for the most part, looks pretty comfortable for black. Bishop f5, planning rook c8 quickly. Even knight a5 is possible. Somehow I feel like bishop f5 is more natural at the moment. So we'll go with that. Again, meeting d5 with knight a5. And if he castles, probably just rook c8. Yeah. So I'll play rook c8 quickly. And yeah, he protects the bishop. Knight e4 would be a very natural response here. Lengthening this bishop and trading off a set of minor pieces. I'd also be very happy to have my bishop on e4. Controlling d5 and also threatening it at a lot of moments bishop takes f3 and ganging up on this weak pawn. So I'm thinking about knight e4. Knight a5 is also very reasonable. I'd be happy to trade the light squared bishops. Which one? These are my two candidate moves here. Somehow I feel like knight a5 is a little bit more to the point. Trading the light squared bishops would be very favorable for black, as would be just winning the bishop clean if he goes bishop b3. If he goes bishop b3, I'll likely take it immediately and then just play a6, guarding my a7 pawn from the rook, and I think I'd be very comfortable there. I could follow up with knight d5, and yeah, very few problems. If bishop d3, I'll take it. I guess he can go b3 here, but that looks a little odd. Maybe in that case I can go knight e4, or I can go a6, which would threaten b5, exposing the hanging c3 knight. Presumably b3, a6, rook a to c1. Okay, so that. I'm just going to take that thing. I like the two bishops. I like black structure. I think this is probably objectively a little bit better for black already. Something like rook f to d1 or rook a to d1. I'm not going to let him push d5. I'll play d5, knight d5 myself. I won't be playing b5 for the foreseeable future because a6 would be weak and backward in that case. So I'm just going to look to finish my development, probably something like queen d6, knight d5, rook f to d8, and then I'm going to start trying to turn the screws on this d pawn. And a lot of times the tricky part about playing against the isolated d pawn is that you first play to sort of blockade it, but then a lot of times you have to rearrange your pieces to actually try and win it or make some progress against it. So rook a to c1. Knight d5 would be natural. Knight e4 is possible and probably good. Queen d6 seems fine. Even bishop e6. Guarding the d5 square and also hitting b3. Looks kind of annoying. I think I'm just going to go queen d6, though. Just to... I'm less excited about queen d7 because knight e5 would gain a move. So I think I'm just going to play this, and I'm going to look to follow up with rook f d8. I'm not certain if I want to play knight e4, knight d5, or simply leave the knight here for a while. So I'm not declaring that piece yet. Bishop e6 was kind of enticing. I'm gonna look at that. It feels weird to move a piece twice after rather after having already put it on f5 and then, you know, still having the queen on d8 and the rook on d8, f8 to develop. So I'm not going to do that right away. Spotty connection, perhaps. White's position is solid. I mean, it's not... I feel like black is better, but not that much better. It's going to be quite a bit easier to win this game if my opponent just never shows back up. Finally back over 2,300. Took a couple wins last night playing Classical. And he's back. If I was white, I'd probably play something like rook f to e1 here. The only real issue with black's position could be that e7 is a little bit weak. In the positions with the isolated queen pawn positions with g6 and bishop g7, a lot of times black is a little bit reluctant to go e6. It just weakens the dark squares, and in this case it would get my bishop trapped in one move to g4, but okay. So now knight c4 is in the mix. Perhaps I just go rook f d8 anyway. If he goes knight c4, I think I can find a square for my queen. Even e6 is possible, but something like queen c7 or queen b8 is probably okay too. Now that the rook is no longer on a1, I can start to contemplate b5 in some positions too. So if knight d5, knight c4, presumably just something like queen b8. Can still go bishop e6. Could even go b5, stopping knight c4 altogether. Not easy to choose. White might be looking to go bishop f4, which would be kind of annoying. Knight d5 would stop that. I think for that reason I'll play this move. If he goes knight c4, I'll figure it out. I'll find a square. Well, I gotta figure it out now. Queen b8 looks like it loses in exchange now. So in response to queen b8, knight takes d5, rook takes d5, knight b6 would hit this rook and this rook. That's kind of a bummer, because that's the move I intended to play. I can go queen d7, that also loses in exchange. Dang it. Queen d7, knight takes d5. Queen takes d5, knight b6. Well, all of a sudden, starting to look at least a little bit dumb here. Perhaps queen e6. Queen e6, g4. Queen c7, knight d5, rook takes d5. Sort of feel like that's asking for it. Putting my phone on mute really quick. Someone just sent me a text message. Queen f6. Queen f6 looks kind of weird, but I don't see anything necessarily wrong with it. I can take on c3, but I really don't want to do that. I'm just going to go queen f6. Hope for the best. It'll be interesting to look at the last couple of moves, I think, in this game, because maybe I missed something. Maybe it was more... Well, rook d5 is forced. I have to be a little bit mindful of knight b6 ideas here. But otherwise, my position looks okay. Again, white has some structural problems. I have the two bishops. Not the end of the world, but this looks okay for me. Yeah, I think probably maybe... Oh, this is too far. Maybe somewhere around, like here, I could have been slightly more precise. I think the opening was okay. Yeah, it sort of feels like maybe moves 15, 16, and 17 are sort of critical, where black kind of needs to find a specific plan. I'm just thinking whether or not if it's okay to sort of trap my queen on this f6 square with bishop e6, or if I have to go bishop d7 instead. I don't really want to block the d file if I don't have to, and e6 just optically appears to be a better square for the bishop. But bishop e6, the problem is it allows knight b6, and then I'm forced to take on c1. He takes on c1, and then I suppose I have to go rook d8. Doesn't look super comfortable for me. Okay, I'm just going to go bishop d7, just to avoid the hassle of always having to calculate knight b6, honestly. I guess bishop b5 is maybe a reason to go back to d7 anyway. I didn't see that before. Even bishop c6. If he goes knight e5, probably... can't go bishop b5 because of rook takes c8. And if I go rook takes c1, rook takes c1, bishop b5, he has rook c8 check, bishop f8 forced, and then bishop h6, and I'm actually in a lot of trouble. So if knight e5, well, maybe just rook d8. Yeah. I don't want any problems with my back rank, so I'm just going to go rook d8. If he takes it, I'll take this way. Again, not allowing rook c8 check is the idea. Do have to forfeit the two bishops. I will go bishop b5 on the next move if allowed. Still a little bit more pleasant for black, I feel, but nothing super exciting. This bishop is not the most exciting piece in the world. Though, to be fair, neither are either of my bishops. The knight on e5 is definitely the best minor piece at the moment. Can I exploit this pin somehow? It's kind of a pseudo pin. Like bishop b5. Queen c2. I can almost go queen takes e5. Bishop b5, queen c2. Or I can just move the queen. Well, I'm going to go bishop b5 anyway. Maybe queen h4 at some point is irritating. Again, now there's a pin along the d file. So for instance, moving the queen hits h3, and then I can go bishop takes e5, and he can't recapture. He needs to be at least moderately careful here, I think. Maybe knight c4 is the best move, just getting rid of the option of me taking on e5, either with the queen as a pseudo-sacrifice, or by moving the queen and then taking with the bishop. So queen c2. I can take here. And then after d takes e5, takes, king g2, I mean. Bishop f3 check. f3 probably, bishop takes e5. That seems adequate. I kind of want to just do it to sack my queen, honestly. Queen h4 looks decent also. Decisions. Queen h4 is probably objectively the stronger move, but I just think this move is kind of fun to play in a stream game. You don't see moves like that particularly often. Decisions. All right. What the hell? Let's uncork this. I'll pre-move rook takes d1. If he goes to h2 with his king, I'll take on e5 with check, so presumably he'll go king g2. And after king g2, yeah, I have to decide what I want to do here. If I go bishop c6 check, the problem is he can almost take it. And then after queen takes c6, I have this loose a-pawn, which is kind of scary. I can take on e5 first, and after rook e7 I can go bishop c6. I kind of like that better. Ah, he can't take on b7 though, can't he? If he takes on b7, bishop f1, king f3 is forced. I can take on h3. It's interesting. It's kind of a mess. Really? Is there anything better than just taking here? That move seems kind of suspicious. Should I check first so that he can't go king g3? He has to go king f3. I'm going to do that. So I'm going to check here first. The idea being that if I take and then he takes, he then, in response to bishop f1, has king g3, and I can't take on h3. But I'm going to throw in this check first. He must go to f3, presumably. These two moves would lose a queen. No, they wouldn't. Maybe you can't go to those squares. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to, yeah, I'm going to take here, and then I can take on h3. But maybe actually I should go like rook 1 to d7 first. Guard my pawns. Then he can go queen c3. Okay, this is getting kind of messy. Shouldn't have done this. Oh god, and I have no time. This wasn't the most practical thing I've ever done in my life, but I couldn't resist. So presumably he's going to go queen c3. Oh, he can't go queen c3 because I just go rook d3 check. So okay, so I can take on h3 actually. Well, maybe I can. I guess queen e5 he can do. If queen e5 though, I can check. He goes here, I can check again. So I'm going to check, yeah. The idea is that his king, he either has to play bishop e3 or he has to walk his king up to one of these scary squares. And I'm happy if he does that. If he wants to keep this mate threat going, he can do that. I think this rook check is gonna would win if he walks the king up. He doesn't care. So aren't I just winning the queen now? If king g5, f6 check. So I might be getting lucky here. I think he probably had to play bishop e3, but he didn't want to do that because he's got this nasty threat. And it's a pretty serious threat too, because if I had to go f6, he can go queen e6 check, and when I move my king here, he can go queen f7. He'd be threatening mate here. I'd have to play rook g8. It'd be ugly. But now he's losing. I mean, king g5, f6. He's just totally lost. So I'm getting a little lucky here, I think. I don't think it should have been this easy for me to win. But we can look after the game. Maybe after bishop e3, he's still in some trouble. Weird game. I sort of wanted to play this way just because I felt like you would not see a lot of games on my channel that go like this. I'm typically a little bit more positional, a little bit more conservative, so I felt like, all right, queen takes e5. Probably not the best move, but, you know, weird material imbalances and stuff like that is something you're probably not going to see as much. Okay, so I'm just going to be up a rook here, and all of his pawns are going to fall off pretty much. So I'll go rook b4. He can't stop me from taking on b3 with check. If h4, I might take on g4. Okay. So h3 is hanging. I'll take them all. If he plays g5, I'm probably honestly just going to play rook takes e3. Or rook takes h6. I'm thinking about rook takes e3, which is why I said it. Yeah, I'm just going to do this. I mean, there's not really a lot to say. I'm going to make a passed h-pawn, and yeah, this game's just completely over. So a little bit of an anticlimax there. It could have been sort of a prolonged struggle with the queen against the rook and minor, but a blunder from white made it a little bit easier probably than it should have been. If he goes king f2, I'll play bishop c6. It's not really necessary. And probably I should have actually led with a5. He can play b4 here and make it kind of irritating for me to make an a-pawn. That was sort of dumb. Okay, but yeah, he misses it, and I'm just going to go essentially a3, a2, a1 are my next moves no matter what. I'm not going to protect this thing. I don't care. Pre-move that. Pre-move queen. And we'll check here. And mate is unstoppable. Coming soon to a theater near you. Queen g4 mate. He can go king g5 and give himself the h6 square, but I'll just go king g7. And he resigns. So let's take a look at that one. Interesting game. So yeah, I've been trying to get an exchange Grunfeld for a long time, but no one appears to want to do that. So this would be the main line of the Grunfeld, and after bishop g7, there are typically two main ways to play. There are a lot of variations in the exchange. It's a very rich complex, but the two main ones would be knight f3, intending bishop e2 and rook b1, and there's also bishop c4. After bishop c4, c5, bishop e3, knight c6, again, attacking d4 over and over again. White typically goes knight e2. Knight f3 would allow bishop g4, so normally knight e2, now if bishop g4, then f3. And after castles, there are tons of systems here. There's, knight a5, bishop d3, b6 is very popular and hotly debated. I think this is the variation that happened in the Topalov-Anand game from their World Championships. If I can find that game, if I'm not wrong, I'll post it. I think Peter's Fiddler was the one to first play this line, but actually he played it maybe only once or twice and then abandoned it because it became a little bit too theoretical. There's also bishop g4, f3, knight a5, and a bunch of variations are possible here. Bishop f7 or bishop d3. F takes g4 is possible even. That's the Seville variation. I think that was sort of popularized by the long Kasparov-Karpov match. Again, don't hold me to that, though. I'll post that game if I can as well. Popular nowadays is to go bishop g4, f3, and bishop d7. So bishop d7 is one of the more popular moves here, intending to just go queen c7, usually rook a to d8, bringing the rook to the d file and upping the pressure on d4. But eventually people started to realize that in some variations, having white insert f3 was not always to his benefit. And so people started going bishop g4, f3, bishop d7. And I think this is the variation that's recommended in Avruk's Grandmaster Repertoire Grunfeld book, and also in Peter's Fiddler's online Chess24 series. A variation I like a lot is very little played, e6. And to understand e6, you have to sort of understand some of the other variations. A lot of times in this for instance, white can just take this thing, but usually this sacrifice is not particularly promising for white. You open up the bishop on g7. These pawns are very permanently weak, and a lot of times you see black make the sacrifice permanent even by going b6, and after c takes b6, a takes b6. Both of these pawns are very weak and isolated and on open files, so black has good pressure. But a lot of times black is sort of shooting for a position with queen e7, rook d8, knight a5, and b6 usually. Bishop comes to b7, rooks will come to d8 and c8. Just very solid. What else is there? Yeah, queen c7 is possible, just playing go rook d8. I think this was sort of the original line and a Smyslov patent. Yeah, but it's also possible to go knight f3, and after c5, I believe bishop e2, castles, rook b1, is a main line popularized by Boris Gelfand and Alexander Khalifman. White gets his rook off the long diagonal, so in some variations this allows d5, even as a pawn sacrifice. And also it dissuades bishop g4 because of rook takes b7. And there are tons of lines here. One popular line is knight c6, d5, knight e5, takes, hitting c4, and after queen d2, I believe e6, f4, and now bishop c7 is the main line. So if white was allowed to play c4, black would be in quite a bit of trouble. And so bishop c7, if c4, bishop a5, the bishop snakes around in this funny way to pin the queen. And yeah, black will play bishop a5 anyway, usually b6, exchange on d5, and put the bishop on f5. This is an interesting line. I think this move was introduced by the women's world champion Chiburdinidze in maybe like the 60s. Don't hold me to the date though. I'm not totally positive about that. If I can find that game, I'll post it. More usual here is to take, and then go queen a5 check. And after bishop d2, black can gobble up the pawn on a2, but after castles, white has good compensation. Obviously, the center and black is underdeveloped, and the queen is sorely misplaced on a2. The most reliable move, I believe, is bishop g4, and I think this pretty much equalizes. By now, between high-level OTB games and correspondence games, I think this move has almost been worked out to essentially like force drawn endgames, pretty much. A lot of times black sacks an exchange and to keep these pawns, and he'll play down an exchange, but with one or two of these pawns. It's also possible to go a5 after castles, a5. I think b6 is also a move. So yeah, those are the main variations, and that's more typical of the Grunfeld than what white played. It's also possible to not exchange and play knight f3, and after bishop g7, there are a lot of moves. Bishop f4, bishop g5, and queen b3 are the main ones. I won't go into any of the theory, but yeah, e3 is probably just a little bit passive. It's just not that ambitious to one, put your pawn on e3 when you have the opportunity of exchanging and putting it on e4, and also blocking in this dark square bishop. So after castles, the only really kind of sort of maybe very slightly poisonous plan for white is to go bishop e2, d2, and rook c1 here, trying to dissuade c5, and a lot of variations with bishop d2 and rook c1 because this knight is really well defended and the rook is already on the c file. Sometimes it's hard for black to go c5. White can take it in a lot of cases. But yeah, as played, h3 just looks too slow, a little bit passive, and after c5, black is probably already equal. I don't think white has really played with any sort of verve, and probably his first move advantage is already gone. As I talked about, d takes c5, queen a5. The question here is what happens after this, presumably this. Oops, take here, no, bishop d2, I think. Taking here just loses a rook, so if takes here, I mean, yeah, queen d2 is the only move, but after queen a1, probably not good for white. The queen is not in any huge danger of being trapped on a1. So yeah, bishop d2 is the more thematic move, and then I was wondering about takes. I assume knight takes, and maybe this is good for white because it's not easy to get the pawn back. So probably, yeah, queen takes c5 here instead, and then black is equal. Rook c1, I'll just put my queen on b6, knight c6, bishop e6, rook fd8. I don't think black has very many problems here. And if bishop d2, then I'll just take, and if takes, I'll take back, and yeah. This is one thing that a lot of times in the past has stopped me from playing the Grunfeld on a lot of occasions. The problem with playing this structure here is that in a lot of variations where white is satisfied to just exchange everything, it's hard to avoid really sterile and symmetrical endgames. So if you see something like d takes c5, queen a5, bishop d2, takes, you know, a bunch of takes, or rook c1 as the computer suggests, the structure is totally symmetric between the sides, and black is totally fine, obviously. White, it really hasn't caused him any problems. And after knight takes d5, queen takes d5, sure. Bishop c4, queen d6, Black has no real problems at all, but also it's not that easy to imbalance the game. Whereas in the King's Indian, for instance, the positions typically don't... The central tension isn't really resolved, and you get a lot more closed structures with large number of pieces on the board. But yeah, the King's Indian has its own problems, so don't think you get off totally scot-free either. Yeah, and here I took on c4 now that he's moved the light squared bishop, and exchanged on d4. I assumed white would take this way to just preserve his structure, and I was intending to go queen c7, something like bishop b3, and then probably a6 to... But actually, maybe even here, just rook d8 is good. Threatening e5, and I don't really care if he, has the b5 square. I can just go queen b6. And this is already, I think, a little bit better for black. If queen e2, I can just go knight c6, I presume, and after takes. Honestly, taking either way is probably very good, but takes, castles, maybe even b6 here. Just planning to go bishop b7, rook a to c8, and yeah, I like black a little bit, but it's probably objectively very close to equal. But he took with the isolated d pawn, and now, yeah, I wasn't sure what the best move is. It would be interesting to kind of examine a lot of moves. a6 came to mind, knight d7 comes to mind. Then if castles, knight b6, bishop b3. The only thing I don't like about this is maybe it's going to be a little bit tricky to get my light squared bishop to an acceptable square. I can play bishop f5 and intend to go knight e4, but yeah, the f5 square in a lot of these positions is not totally stable. g4 looks dubious now, but maybe in the future it's kind of annoying, or knight h4. Yeah, somehow I don't like that. I kind of like knight c6 better. I can still chase the bishop, but also knight a5 threatens to win the bishop pair, which I think is a little bit more logical. It is possible to play a6 here, though. What if castles b5? Something like bishop b3, probably, and then bishop b7. This is interesting. This is worth considering. And maybe now knight d7 to b6 is a little bit more tempting. Knight c4 might come into play later after rook c8, and knight b to d5. Black has good control of the d5 square in this position. You do open yourself up to the queenside pawns being weak to an a4 break later, though. Interesting idea, nonetheless. Knight c6 is probably just the most straightforward move. Somehow it feels to me like white should castle here instead. White's absolutely sure that his king is going to go short, and there's no real reason to not play it at the moment. And I'd rather not, if I was white, declare the bishop to e3. Not only is e3 kind of just a passive square, but it's just a little bit more flexible to castle first, and then, I would be thinking about a more active development, for instance, bishop f4, bishop g5. White needs to generate some kind of pressure to compensate for this isolated d-pawn, or probably not going to be very happy about it. Yeah, even here I can go knight a5 straight away. I think that's worth considering. Probably if I was white, I would go bishop e2. I don't really want to exchange the light squared bishops. Then it's just... Yeah, exchanging pieces when you have an isolated pawn is generally probably not the greatest idea, and then also exchanging white's good bishop and leaving the light squares weak is probably not all that desirable also. Rook c8, knight c4 is a plan, and just maybe knight d5 here is good. So probably bishop e2, and then, yeah, rook c8 and knight c4 again, or knight d5 immediately. Even queen d6, rook f d8 looks good. Yeah, I already feel like this is better for black. Stockfish thinks so too. It just, yeah, intuitively, white has accepted some relatively serious structural concessions, and black has the two bishops. There's nothing really wrong with his position at all. Probably bishop d3 was warranted. This is maybe a little bit better than what white got, but yeah. Knight c4 and... black is very comfortable still. The knight can come to d6 if it gets booted. It's a very reasonable square, and I'm pretty happy with this position. Yeah, maybe rook f to e1 here. Just trying to... Even if you have to waste a tempo to move this bishop, maybe after bishop g5 or bishop f4, white could at least bother me about e7 for a second. Of course, I can just answer it with rook e8, but... somehow it feels like white didn't achieve a lot here. But after, yeah, moves 15, 16, and 17 seem to be kind of critical. Yeah, bishop e6. I looked at this move. It seemed like a move. It just also is one of those moves that looks weird, and I'm, at least for me, a little bit reluctant to play that move when more natural options are available. It is interesting to play this now, though, because if bishop e6, if white has to go b4, then knight e5 to c4 is no longer possible, and that was kind of an annoying maneuver. Of course, b4 loses immediately, so white can't do that now, but yeah, this move is actually pretty uncomfortable for white. I mean, the only moves that don't lose b3 are not good chess moves. Yeah, I sort of maybe didn't look at this move long enough, or in concrete enough fashion. I probably should have played it. But queen d6 doesn't seem bad either. After knight e5, though, perhaps I should reckon with the threat of knight c4. It was a little bit more irritating than I gave it credit for. Like b5 I thought about now that the rook is on c1. And with the queen on d6, it also protects a6. So maybe this is possible. Yeah, it's kind of funny. This is actually kind of reminds me of, I believe it's game number 4 on my channel against J-Knight. So this actually looks a lot like, wow, I can't believe I didn't think of this. After a6 and b5, this position is a very close mirror to my game against J-Knight where I was white. In the Tarrasch defense, white had black had the isolated pawn in that case, and I had played a3 and b4, and in this game, white has the isolated pawn, and I've played a6 and b5, and again, after this, in the game against J-Knight, I didn't see the maneuver knight f6 to e4 to d6 to c4, capitalizing on my c4 weakness, and in this game I missed knight f3 to e5 to d3 to c5, capitalizing on the same weakness. It's weird how similar structures show up like that. Yeah, knight d3 is interesting after b5. Maybe bishop e6 now, and if knight c4, yeah, I can just move the queen to b4, I guess, and I'm pretty comfortable. Stopping knight b6 and threatening to just take here. Also looking at the b3 weakness. That would be pleasant for black. Very pleasant. So yeah, maybe rook fd8's a little bit inaccurate. Just a little bit too superficial, I think is maybe the word. I probably should have addressed this threat a little bit sooner. Maybe here, even this is possible. But yeah, I guess queen b4. So after knight d5, can I go queen b4? Yeah, so I just completely missed the option to go queen b4, period. Like, queen b4 would be a very natural square and a powerful square. Attacking b3, eyeing c4 and c3. Yeah. So this probably would have been better. Queen b8 I thought lost an exchange. Oh, I guess I can offload there. Dang. So yeah, definitely some missed opportunities and some visualization problems around this point in the game. Just a little bit sloppy on my part. Queen f6 isn't bad, but it's not the best move. I think queen b4 would have been much better. Or queen b8. Queen b8's the move I actually wanted to play, and I just miscalculated slightly. So that's disappointing, but honestly, after my last game that I posted, number 7, I'll take this game. This game was a relatively smooth affair, I think. And if here I thought knight b6 was annoying, and if takes, yeah, he's hitting the rook and also threatening rook c8. I assumed I had to go here, though. What's wrong with this? Oh, d5, dang. Yeah, I guess that's pretty good. The idea is that after takes, check, black's just totally losing because of bishop f8, bishop h6. Threatening mate in 1. Yeah, so that would have been ugly. So in this position I have to sack the exchange, geez. And I'm still better somehow. I guess both of these guys are hanging. Okay, I mean I can kind of see that. I have the 2 bishops, and I'm gonna bag another pawn. His king side's a little bit loose. I would never play this way though. It just seems kind of unnecessary. Bishop d7 was just a little bit more clear, and After you realize the bishop can hop back out to b5, this option looks kind of enticing. Whoops. After knight e5. I didn't think I wanted to take here. Takes, takes. And now if bishop b5, again, I lose it the same way, so I have to protect the bishop somehow, or I probably would play queen d6 just to stop rook c7 also. Yeah, I guess black is still better here. It's just not maybe... wasn't as obvious to me as just simply moving the rook. But I guess this does allow rook c7, which I had to reckon with. It doesn't appear to be very good, but... Yeah, queen h4. Dang it. Stockfish sees everything. Yeah, if queen h4, I'm just hitting this and threatening this at the same time. And I guess there's no real way for white to stop these. My move was probably a little bit speculative. But I couldn't resist. It was so tempting. You know, every once in a while in chess, you just have to create something. You have to indulge the artistic part of the game, I think. It was just too tempting to not play. Yeah, and if king h2 here, I think bishop h2 or bishop e5 is just strong. With the double attack, so king g2 is forced, and I played bishop e5. This is possible, but I was a little bit worried about this sack. And I guess I can go rook a1 here, which I didn't see at the time. If rook a1, maybe e6 is annoying, though. Yeah, just puncturing up my king side a little bit. In a lot of these positions where your opponent has a queen and you have minor pieces, the effectiveness of the queen really depends on how many weaknesses you have and how loose your king is. So in positions where your opponent has the queen, you need to be very careful with your king and very careful with your structure. And I think here, even though I have sufficient material if you just count, I think probably after something like rook a1, e6, white is just better based on king safety, and it's just not easy for it's not going to be easy for me to keep these weaknesses and my king from running into at least a little bit of trouble. And if this pawn falls or white gets one of these pawns going, it's going to be extremely hard for me to stop. So probably in this position, yeah, I'd have to let a6 fall and take on e5 to just save my king and hope that I could fight against this pawn. Probably I would rather be white in this case, but maybe objectively it's drawn. But it also doesn't seem like I have to allow this. I sort of just looked at this, takes, and then check, and I figured, okay, I can move my bishop back, and after he plays, let's say, f3 here, and yeah, I mean, I'm solid, and I have adequate material. Maybe I can attack b2 in some cases. Perhaps I can go rook a1, and here, it seemed to me like this was a little bit better than checking right away. Again, my king is safer, and my structure is a little bit more sound on the queen side. I don't have this weakness on a6, so... But bishop h6, probably this is a mistake. I probably don't want to take here right away. This seemed less good. Just because at some point I felt like I wanted to go bishop f1 anyway, and if I takes bishop f1, then he can go king g3, and I would really wish my bishop was on c6. So yeah, now he runs into problems on h3, which he wouldn't have before. And this is kind of forced, and after queen e5, rook d3, yeah. White can't go to any of these squares, so marching forward, I think, essentially just loses instantly. This was probably the critical moment in the game for white. Bishop e3, like I said during the video, is forced, and yeah, I mean, this position's messy. I'm not totally sure I could really win this position if my opponent played bishop e3, especially because I had like 20 seconds left here. Probably I'm going to guard e6 somehow. I'm reluctant to go, or e7. I'm reluctant to go e6 because it weakens the dark squares pretty seriously. But I'm not in love with rook e8 either. King f8 obviously gets mated in one move. This is kind of this position's kind of a mess. It would be hard to play in time trouble too. I'm glad my opponent did not do this. Probably taking on b3, taking on e7 is better for white. Takes. Yeah, I'm not that excited about doing this. And if takes on e3, h3, probably I can get away with this. King g3, I can just go back. But yeah, I have to re-coordinate my pieces somehow. This bishop doesn't belong on f1 anymore. Probably this rook on d3 should come back, and maybe, honestly, the bishop needs to be back on c6 again. But yeah, after this, I mean, this is just a complete oversight. Of course, king g5, f6 just wins everything. And that was mostly the game. I mean, after this, it's just, yeah, white's down a full chess set, and he allows me to take off the bishop too, and this is just, yeah, easily winning. Interesting game. Again, I would like someone to challenge me in the exchange Grunfeld. I'm sort of itching to practice the main lines, and no one is indulging me at all. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the game. I'm gonna go do adult things now. It's 9:30. My apartment needs cleaned up. I need to eat some dinner. I need to take a shower. I need to get ready for work. I have to lecture tomorrow. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you with another one and more endgame stuff soon. Bye.